Whether you've got a drift car, a show car, a jacked up truck, or just a really nice daily, there's always one way you can make it have that next level of style. Throw some underglow on that bad boy. Be able to make sure that you use not just any product, but glow towed products. Why is that? Well, they come with pre terminated connectors and lines, which means no crimping, soldering, or wiring involved other than hooking up to the battery. That's right, this is not your granddaddy's LED kit. They use 3M adhesive strips. They have all the mounting hardware to be able to use on multiple surfaces, detailed instructions, and a bunch of different freebies included in every order. Now, how do you save some money? You go to their website, www.glow-toad.com, and at checkout, make sure to use promo code THEDIRTDROP to be able to save 10% off your next order. To be able to see more of their work online, check them out on Instagram at Glowtoad Lighting. What's going on, everybody? Chris DeBoard here for another episode of The Dirt Drop. My guest this week is somebody who I only had the pleasure of meeting once in person. We had a very, very brief chat as compared to all my other guests, but there was enough said that was like, you know what? I really want to dig in deep. I want to find out more about this person because they really can offer another perspective that can help all of my viewers on this show. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you, Mr. Justin Ruth. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a beautiful evening here in North Dakota, and we're excited to be on with you, and we appreciate it.
Fantastic. Now, Justin Ruth is a newcomer to a lot of people. So can you give us an idea of who Justin Ruth is and how did you get started in the wonderful sport of drifting?
Yeah, absolutely. We're a rookie this year in Pro Spec, so this is our first year competing in FD. We won our license last year in Pro-Am, so we're utilizing that license this year. Back up, we started drifting only 5 years ago. What started as us going to an event, jumped in some buddies' cars as a ride-along. Really just fell in love with it immediately. And I think within 2 weeks, we went and bought a 240 with an SR20 in it, pretty simple setup, and just started burning laps immediately with all of our buddies. It just progressed slowly over 5 years. I shouldn't say slowly. I mean, 5 years is pretty quick, but 5 years of just fun and constant progression and learning. And here we are 5 years later. So.
I honestly think that's incredible. When you told me that when I first talked to you, it was like, all right, hey, year 1, drifting is really cool. Year 2 and 3, we got good. Year 4, I have a Pro Spec license. And year 5, you are now in the 4-round show. It's just incredible, man. Seriously, I'm really, really, really excited for you.
Yeah, I owe, I can't take much credit. I owe a lot to, one of our local guys here is actually Cody Buchanan, who's a current Pro Spec driver. He's right here from Fargo with us. I started driving with him. My main crew guy, Breck, he's a fantastic driver as well. We all drifted together. So immediately from day one of buying my car, I was driving with, a Pro Spec caliber driver, other drivers who definitely could be Pro Spec drivers if they put their mind to it. So right away, I mean, we were just thrown into a group of really good drivers with really great cars. And so the progression, I think, was partially, maybe a little bit of natural talent, but also just having really good people around to teach me the right things versus, just being thrown a car and saying good luck and going and blowing up cones and walls and whatever else. We had a good base and really good people around us.
No, and I mean, like you said, just, getting in the car and doing things. Were you involved in any other kind of motorsport or extreme sport before this?
Yeah, so growing up, I didn't do much. I played hockey, the usual sports. And then once I got to be, I think like 9 or 10, started racing motocross, did that for most of my youth. Just locally up here in the upper Midwest, did some of the national qualifying races, whatever else, but never was going to be enough top tier enough to take it too seriously. So we kept it pretty local. But then, quit when I went to college and started to get hard on your knees and your body. And when you crashed, you felt it for 3 weeks. And so I didn't do much for a couple of years. And that's why I almost think subconsciously I was looking for another motorsport to dive into, but I didn't know what it was going to be. And then when drifting came along, it was like, hey, we got a cage and harnesses and if worst case scenario, we're going to maybe have, a bruise or a sore neck or something. So for me, it just felt really, really at home coming from that motocross competitiveness to, drifting, which is still a competitive racing sport, but it's a little safer and easier on your body, but more expensive. So there's trade-offs each direction.
I mean, my math is a little off, but having almost a decade of, just that progression through motocross, through growing up and just, I guess, maturing, does that kind of help you appreciate the, start small, go big crescendo of what it took to get into drifting, be where you're at now?
Yeah, very much so. I think competitive drifting is an extremely humbling sport. You can have absolutely every piece of the puzzle put together. You can have the car, you can have the talent, you can have the skill, and then you'll drive 14 hours and your car could have a bad ground and shuts off on initiation. You pack up and go home. And so I think learning early on with moto that um, there's 40 other riders on the gate, that are all very talented, and you can't expect to win every single race and not even every other race. You just hope to get on the box once or twice a season. So I think that has helped us remain, you know, um, cool, calm, and collected as the season's not going our way, and still have a positive outlook on it. But yeah, I think it definitely transitions well to set realistic expectations, because my whole youth was setting those realistic expectations as we went out to compete with some really good guys across the Midwest.
Now, obviously, when you were a Ute, going through, motocross, you had your family obviously as your key support element.
Mhm.
Now it's your homies and you have a family to support. So understanding that balance of, even when you were in the grassroots side of
Mhm.
drifting versus family life versus personal relationships, can you kind of give us the crash course on how you manage that?
Oof. It's a struggle, and what's been a struggle about it is each year, especially this jump to FD, it's a huge toll. And people think, well, it's only 5 days, 4 times a year, but they don't think about the weeks of building the car, the week that you're out at cleaning it, and I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and it is such a huge sacrifice. Um, on the family, the friends. Luckily, I'm fortunate where some of my best friends are the guys coming with me to compete, and some of the guys that I drive with. So as far as the friends go, I've gotten closer to them the more I drive, but then also the more we drive, the more I'm away from my kids and our family, and I'm missing lakes days and whatever else. And so it's a hard one to balance. Forget about the budget, the money. It's just a hard one to balance with relationships. And uh, I'm really blessed that I have a career and a job, that I have a lot of flexibility, and as long as I have my cell phone on me, I can work remote. And but yeah, it's a really hard balancing act, and I think if you get it wrong, it's going to weigh on you so heavily mentally. You're going to put all this effort into it, and you're not going to see the results, and it's going to be weighing on you, and you're just not going to have the fun. And I think you're going to get burnt out. So finding that balancing act of work, pleasure, family is extremely challenging, especially now being thrown into FD, which is New Jersey, St. Louis, Atlanta, Utah. I mean, it's big traveling, and lots of time on the road, lots of time prepping the car. So it's one that we're still figuring out, but we're getting through it pretty good.
No, that's fantastic news, because you also said that there's a couple of pro spec and pro drivers that are in your region that kind of you
Mhm.
leaned on going up and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit more about that too?
Yeah, well, like I talked about earlier, really leaned on Cody before he was even a prospect driver. Him and Breck and some other guys that were just awesome drivers to learn, I think, kind of the base and the skills and the talents that we did. But, also additionally, Austin Matt has been a huge supporter of us. Hey, man, I've bounced so many questions off of him. We were actually going to share a spotter this season. We were going to partner with Alec, but he ended up not driving this year. Just, the financial burdens of this series, especially when you start talking the pro level, the top guys, and what they do for 8 rounds. So there's been some dynamics there. We would have liked to have been on a 2 car team with Alec and our, and us doing a pro spec team. I thought that would have been pretty cool. Luckily, Alec is still a part of our program, kind of our crew chief, if you will, kind of directing traffic when we get to events and giving us setup advice and giving us a huge leg up on um, setup. So I mean, we're coming in with a 90% setup car with just some fine tuning, and suspension really is all we're adjusting. We have the gear ratios set, and a general idea of how much grip we want in the car, and we're coming with a really good package, right away. So I'm a firm believer in, you can have all the tools, but if you don't have the right people around you, you're going to struggle. And I think that's, we've had some struggles, but I think all in all, when you look at our rounds and our practice runs and everything, we've really had some good luck. We haven't had any big blowups. We haven't had any failures. So I think we're on the right track. We're progressing the right way, and kind of finding our way with our group. But no, we got really good people around us from top to bottom, that are definitely helping us get to where we need to be.
People are definitely part of a program more than people. It's or people understand it's not just the stickers and the sponsors and the rig and all that kind of stuff. If you don't
Mhm.
have individuals willing to go out of their way and make the same sacrifices, you're going to be treading water and not treading water long. We'll say that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, immediately when we were in first to get our license in the series, I mean, I had our close group of friends like, dude, we're 100% in. Go get your license. Like, don't worry about what's next because we're going to be there to support you. I got two buddies that come down from Canada, that are just great, and
Wow.
yeah, Jesse and Jake. They come down from Canada. They're donating their time. They're buying plane tickets. I mean, they're giving so much of their program, taking away from their own drifting, because of budgets and time away from their families to come just support us. So when people ask me, what does it take to put a program together? Or what's the hardest part about drifting? Yeah, it's so easy to say the money, which it is, but it's really having awesome people that'll just give and give and give and not expect a thing in return other than just wanting to see you succeed and us succeed as a team. It's been crucial.
The beauty of drifting put together. I couldn't say it better myself. Now, you need the people, but you need the tools. And before you had a Z33 350Z chassis with a big LS and a big Magnuson on it, you started with an S14 with an SR20. Can you talk about how you knew it was time to make those steps in progression of modifications or maybe
Yeah.
jumping into a new chassis? Where were those benchmarks for you?
So I only it's the story that I tell everybody not to do, which is and I'm so guilty of it. It's the pot calling the kettle black or what the saying is. But no, I bought that S chassis, and it had about 250 270 horsepower. And I bought it like in August, so we only have up until probably October here to drive before the snow flies. So I only
Okay.
put probably 2.5 months on that car, and then I actually parked it on a wall, pretty bad here, and
Ooh.
bent it up pretty good, and immediately just thought, what should we do next? And um, the natural thing to do, because there's so many Z's out there, was we went and bought a super clean 350Z chassis, um, and immediately stripped it down to nothing and threw a 418 stroked LS3 in it, and wide span front and rear and suspension, and just built. It's actually the chassis we're on now still. It's the original chassis. So this is our fourth season on that chassis with many changes and renditions and different setups throughout the years. But yeah, we only lasted 2 or 3 months on that S chassis, and then immediately went to a Z with an LS. And everyone was telling me, "Oh, you don't, you need to spend more time in a seat time car and whatever else." And I should have listened to them, but hindsight's 2020. But I think we're doing okay. But there's definitely some skills and some things that I probably would have picked up quicker had I spent more time in a more chill car versus going big power, 500 horsepower with wise fab, all the angle, and learn some bad habits that now we're having to undo a little bit. But yeah, it went 0 to 100 pretty fast. Immediately went to you know all the best parts from all the best companies that everybody knows about, and I think some of that also is probably looking at what Cody was running and seeing his comp car and his Z with his LS and thinking, man, that's an awesome car and he's so competitive. Maybe if we get some of that secret sauce too, or getting that chassis, we'll have some luck. So it was a pretty quick ramp, but we haven't, I really haven't driven many other cars. I have no experience in other chassis. I haven't driven Corvettes. I haven't driven BMWs. Really, we had a little bit of time in a 240 and then immediately into our Z. We've never looked anywhere else.
Well, so then, but if you've got 4 years straight of same chassis consistency, that probably, was part of the reason of why you were able to stay in that progression because you're like, okay, got my pro am license. Let's chassis up build for this pro spec season. And then a lot of guys they don't understand. Don't broke it or don't fix it if it ain't broken, right?
Yeah, and I have a philosophy that if it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing. And I'd rather overbuild it the first time and then not have problems versus constantly chasing problems. And also, too, I mean, I wasn't in it very long and I watched guys sitting there rebuilding transmissions, swapping out diffs constantly. And so I would say, I think it was our third year of driving, and I didn't want problems. We were starting to get a little more competitive. We were doing some 50Ks, and we weren't necessarily, destroying people, but we were definitely having some luck and winning some battles. And I just thought, it'd be kind of cool to have a dog box or a quick change. So, our progression through the chassis has always been each off season. What can we do better? What can we build stronger? What's something we didn't like about the car this season? Or some hurdles, and I remember when we went dog box quick change, it would be so nice to be able to adjust our wheel speed without having to drop diffs out. And then also being able to shift and be a little more aggressive on the transmission and not have to worry about, shearing, gears and whatever else. And so for us, it was quick change dog box before I really even had a big dream or a desire to drive FD. That was just something where let's not ever have to change a transmission, or let's be able to dial in wheel speed for this really tight layout at this track. Or if we're fighting grip, let's just, be able to dial some wheel speed out if it's too spicy on that track. So that's always been our chase. And then obviously this off season, which is we're going to be driving pro spec, we need as much power as we can, which some people have a different opinion on that. Let's put the best suspension in the car with some pro two ways from Fortunato. And let's just really dial in this chassis, which we didn't do a whole lot other than really the motor and some suspension setting stuff. And that was our transition into this season of getting it really ready for FD.
I want to back up a little bit because I like to kind of dive into a specific technical piece in each episode. And you mentioned something that, in my opinion, is when those modifications go in the car, that is the comp car, is the dog box quick change combo. For those of you that don't understand what he's talking about, I'm going to let Justin talk about it, but this is a minimum, and correct me if I'm wrong, minimum $15,000 upgrade to your car.
Yeah. It hurts to think about when you start thinking about your drive line in total. I mean, even when you start thinking about how much these cars cost in general, it's just like, and you look at them and they're just beat, and you're just like, oh man, what a horrible investment. But no, so a standard transmission, 5-speed, 6-speed, how the gears engage is relatively delicate, and it's meant to be delicate for smooth driving on the roads. When you start doing racing applications and you're slamming gears or trying to downshift or upshift in drift or in momentum or under load, you'll just shear those, synchros and whatever else, just shear them off, and pretty soon you're replacing transmission. So with those dog boxes, it's basically a 4-speed dog box. You can have a side shift or a top shift, but it's just dog engagement where if it kind of touches, it locks itself in. It just slams into gear. The straight cut gears, I mean, they don't slip. You're not going to break them unless you do something insane. I mean, it's just basically a transmission that, for all intents and purposes, is, I don't want to say the word undestructible, but it's going to take a beating. We put two full hard seasons on our dog box, and then we sent it off to Rick at RTS to have him rebuild it this off season. He's like, looks great, looks healthy. And that's, that's 2 years of just kicking the crap out of it. But those are two instruments. Well, then, go further back to that quick change. If you look at a standard differential, you just have one gear ratio, and you're locked into that ratio unless you take hours of time to pull it out and change your rings out and just do a song and dance that's not time friendly or track friendly. If you're trying to do that at the track, that's just not a good environment to be doing it at.
No.
So a quick change has those winter quick changes. Same thing. We got that from Rick at RTS as well. You just pop that back cap off, pull 2 gears out, throw 2 different gears in, and you completely change that ratio. So now instead of having, 102 mile an hour rear wheel speed, I can have 105, 10, 20, 30. We have increments from, from like 90 to 140 in every 5 miles an hour. So we can really dial it in for whatever we want, depending on what the layout, the track conditions, whatever it calls for, we can make it work. Even if let's say we lost 4th gear, we can then take those gears out of that rear end, and we can put in a gear to now run 3rd. So we can gear it up and change things around to give you some adjustment, some adjustability. But I think the most important component there too is just durability. I mean, chances of blowing a quick change is a lot less than a stock diff. Chances of blowing apart a dog box substantially, stronger than a stock transmission. Even if you rebuilt it with stronger gear sets or whatever you can get for them, it's just not the same. So I think, to your point, that's the incremental change of where you go from like, hey, this is a pretty dope grassroots drift car to like, all right, this is a serious competition car that you got to change the oil every event. You got to change the transmission fluid every event. The gear oil we change every other event. I mean, it's excessive, but it's that natural step you take if you really want to start getting seriously, because you're competing against guys that have it. You almost have to have it too, to a certain extent. I mean, you can get by without it, but boy, it makes it friendly to dial in the car.
Yeah. You mentioned the incremental stuff. I think the nice thing to mention too is that dog box quick change is not new to motorsport. If anything, it's been around longer than I think most modifications. I mean, it's been in NASCAR for God knows how long.
Mhm.
Dirt track, circle track, which is kind of nice for partsability. If you're looking for a Jericho or a G-Force, you
Mhm.
don't have to just go on the drift forums to find these pieces. You can adapt it to where your bell housing will fit and stuff like that. Do you think that some of these other motorsports help drifters, I guess, not just have access to parts at a better price when they're kind of making that jump, or just the knowledge in general is a good thing? What's your stance on that?
I think the knowledge, and especially when you start talking about like LSs and NASCAR motors, I mean, the knowledge of it, just the vast information out there on what setups work, what, bell housings and what all integrates together so well. Um, I think the knowledge out there is huge. I also think that when you start looking at, you know, comparing road racing or these other sports, they're so far ahead of us that they've done the hard work of figuring these things out. Because if it was up to drifters to figure this out, I mean, drifting's been going on for a long time, right? But we're behind the curve as far as history compared to road racing and drag racing and and NASCAR. So I think Formula Drift is taking advantage of these other race series already doing the testing over the last 30, 40, 50, 60 years to put out these products that make our cars indestructible and give us these components that give us that immediate notch up of competition and durability and changeability. So I think drifting is coming along and following up the footsteps of these other race series and getting a huge advantage of not having to spend 30 years developing this stuff. We're developing suspension and steering things, but we're not having to reinvent the wheel with LS engines and NASCAR engines and dog boxes and quick changes. Actually, I mean, quick changes I think actually comes from the dirt track world. Maybe I'm wrong,
Absolutely.
but I
Yep.
think that's probably the biggest use for them other than drifting.
Yeah, no, no. Quick changes in dirt track, modifieds, super sports,
Mhm.
all that. The late models. I mean, that is a staple essentially. Because if you don't have that, you want to talk about dialing in 5 mile an hour increments. Their offset
Oh,
tire size. I mean, it's a whole. How big is the dirt track scene up in the Dakotas?
it's huge, and it's so popular that it's almost makes it really hard to explain what we do. Because whenever we say the word, "Oh, I'm a professional drifter," "Oh, we compete in Formula Drift," "Oh, you guys go to Devil's Lake, track." It's like, well, no, that's dirt track. We're on concrete. Well, where the heck do you do that at? So yeah, up here, dirt track racing is the mecca. I mean, whenever you go out to a guy's farm. So we sell farm equipment. So whenever I go to a farm or go out to somebody's business and they have, a big stacker, it's a 99% chance there's a, crazy, some dirt track car in there. And that's really the racing up here. Drag racing's popular, but it's dirt track, and man, it's every weekend. Um, Within 500 miles of us, there's a dozen races going on every weekend. It's crazy throughout the summer. It's always booming.
I mean, I gotta ask the smoking gun question. Why not get in a late crate model or something like that instead of drifting? What was the push?
I didn't have the introduction.
Uh,
I would bet if I would have had the introduction and somebody would have, brought me out and threw me in one and given me the opportunity, it probably would have been like, man, this is it. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you want to say, I got thrown into a drift car, right? So I think, and to be honest, my family's not a racing family. They don't, I'm the only one in my family that really races or is into cars. And so I just didn't have that introduction into any sort of racing other than my buddies throwing me in a drift car at a chance event, and it taking from there. But But I always say, I mean, most of the dirt track guys around here are in their 40s, 50s. So when drifting, when I become a washed up drifter, I'll take up dirt track.
Pull a Tony Stewart or a Kyle Busch, like, I'm good. I'm just gonna jump in something else real quick.
FD didn't work for us, so we're gonna go try something different. Yeah.
Now, being so close to the dirt track scene, there's some glaring similarities, but there's also a lot of glaring differences on the negative side of things. Formula
Mhm.
Drift is competitive. I think you can agree about that.
Very much so.
Dirt
Yeah.
track is another level of competitive to where, I mean, we see fights at events, we
Mhm.
see all this stuff. The money is just there. What's the biggest thing that you like about the community in drifting that you haven't already talked about? Obviously, your program, but what's one thing that you do like about the current community of grassroots drifting?
Well, grassroots drifting, I think was, especially where we are, it was everybody that knows it. I mean, everybody knows each other at the track. Even when we went down to the 50Ks or some of these bigger events, we're not well known. I'm horrible at social media, so I don't really put a lot out there. And still, people were super receptive and super nice. Um, even some of the really top guys were giving us free information and answering dumb questions that we had. But then you fast forward to the FD level, and we really didn't know what to expect. You hear that people say, "Oh, it's a fun time and everyone's pretty cool," but I mean, everyone is really awesome, and the ability for us to walk around the pits, we're pitted next to other guys we're competing against, and there's just such a great camaraderie. There's so much team on team interaction in the pits as far as sharing parts. I'm Colette went into the wall and there was like 5 different teams over there trying to help her put the car together. And I believe, wasn't it Brewski that actually had to battle her? And he was over there in his race suit, helping throw parts on her car. And I think that is something that people don't see enough or don't know enough is, yeah, we're competitive. And when we go on the track, I mean, my goal is to try to win and to beat you. And I'm going to do everything we can to do that. But we're going to, afterwards, we're going to shake hands and have a great time and probably later on have a couple of drinks together and relax. And that to me has been the biggest, I was not necessarily worried about it, but I was hopeful for it, but I didn't know if it would be there. And that's been the most relieving thing for me is when we go to these rounds, I mean, we're just hanging out with friends and we're building relationships that are going to be there for years to come with other teams. And I know if we needed a part or needed an extra hand, there's guys all over that are just going to jump in and help. And I think that is something that doesn't get talked about enough or even covered enough because there's just not a lot of behind the scenes action there. But no, the FD has been just unreal as far as welcoming us in, answering questions, and most of the teams have just been awesome to be around and be working next to.
Yeah, Lorette does a great job going in the pits and talking to the drivers and really kind of giving perspective of what's going on. But like during those comp timeouts, I mean, people don't understand. Like when you see the different color T-shirts, like everyone has their color. So when you see a yellow and blue shirt, a pink and a green shirt, and they're all working on someone else's car, that's
Mm-hmm.
free labor and just homies helping homies at the professional level.
Yeah, I mean, I think back to our when we were competing in pro am, Rudy Hansen and then they came up to compete at our pro am, and we actually had to call a competition five minute timeout, and it wasn't anything huge, but our exhaust hanger bolt just backed itself off. We didn't know if our exhaust was broken or bent or what, but it was dragging on the ground, and so he came over, and I believe we actually used his wire, but he was over there helping us, and technically we're competing against his wife, to try to win this license. And I'm sitting there in the car and I hear all these guys and I'm listening to the commotion. I'm like, are these really the competitors that we're fighting over this one license? It's not like this is a pat yourself on the back event. This is a pro spec licensing event. And so yeah, I mean, to your point, it's just awesome to see the other teams come in, even when there's that much on the line. If they shouldn't want you to keep going, but they're there helping you do it, which is really awesome.
Let's be honest, it doesn't matter if you have 100 horsepower or 1,000 horsepower. If you don't have tires, you are going nowhere fast as a drifter. That's where Zek Nova comes in. With their broad range of tires available for all horsepower ranges and skill levels, you want to be able to get on board with them to make sure that your drift day is not only fun, but smoky as it should be. From the Supersport RS, the RS606, and the Mac Daddy JR500, Zek Nova has a tire offering to be able to make sure that you get the proper size and compound for your build. Make sure to use promo code The Dirt Drop for 10% off when checking out at their website, www.zeknovaus.com. And make sure to check them out, Facebook and Instagram, ZekNovaUS. Absolutely, absolutely. I want to back up and talk a little bit more about your car. So the Nissan 350Z that you have, Z33 chassis, is not as popular in pro, but widely popular in pro spec. Also the Z34, Hooman Rahimi. I mean, he's got one. Jonathan Hurst ran it before going XLR. What kind of led you down that road, just for only having a couple months in an S chassis, to then decide, hey, this is the car that I want to sink my life savings in?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah. I like how you put it that way. No, you know, I don't know if it was one specific thing. I think it was, I looked at what chassis in excess availability. You know, I'm one of those people that thinks about the outcomes of, behind the outcomes of what happens when we write this chassis off, how hard would it be to get another chassis. So I was definitely looking at, down the road, if we needed another chassis, what's a chassis that's readily available, relatively cheap. There's a plethora of them up here in North Dakota, Minnesota, South Dakota. Our whole local drift scene is just packed full of 350Zs. Now,
Really?
Oh, packed. I mean, you come to some of our local events and there's, I would say, at least 50% or more are 350Zs. I mean, at least. Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy. So for us, we knew sharing parts, access to chassis. Again, Cody Buchanan, to mention him again. I mean, we were all drifting together. So his knowledge on that chassis, there was a bunch of reasons why we went that way. I I don't have a great answer as to why more people don't run in an FD. I think it is a really good chassis. I just don't know if, and again, I don't have much experience in other chassis. I know people talk about like E46 being a super good chassis to drift in, and other chassis, the BMWs especially, being super good platforms that are really aggressive and have a ton of performance behind them. Obviously, Corvettes being, so much forward drive and such a gripped up chassis and so hard to compete against. But then again, you write off a Corvette chassis and it's, go shop and try to find one wrecked. But if you're in a pinch, you might be paying $15,000 for a decent chassis, But I think for us, for the short term and probably honestly the long term, we're going to be sticking with the Z chassis just because it's what we know. We have a ton of time building it and working on it and tweaking it. So I think going to a new chassis would have to be a pretty big event or something happening that I don't see yet, but certainly could come. So right now, I just think for us, it's whether it's good, bad, or the other. It's kind of the chassis we're stuck in for the time being.
Right. No, and again, I mean, it's a done car. I mean, like you said, the modifications put it at the level to be able to operate. But we spoke briefly at FD about the cost of just getting to the event, let alone driving it.
Yeah.
Is there maybe a chance you would build like a decaf version as like a seat time car, just to be able to lower the cost but still be able to get that physical experience on off track on different locations?
Yeah, absolutely. And it kind of goes back to your point earlier, talking about balancing time and family.
Yeah.
And absolutely, I would love to build just a seat time car. But the reality is I just don't know when I'd have more time to get to more events and drive, because I'm doing the 4 rounds of pro. I got to factor in a round of testing before all of that. And then I, try to get to some fun events where there's maybe some ride alongs. Like we just went and did Lakes Jam in Brainerd at Brainerd International Raceway.
Okay.
Music festival, did a little comp there, gave some ride alongs to some of the band staff and whatever else. So, already there, we're at 6 events through the year and I'm trying to balance, family, kids, work. So there's just not a lot of time to add more events, as much as I would absolutely love to have a stock Z, just go burn laps with the buddies and, and have that fun. I just am wondering where I'm going to get the time without pissing everybody off so bad that, I'm end up sleeping alone or in the basement. So
Justin's corner.
exactly. Yeah. I'm going to be just sent to the shop and never allowed back home. But no, I see the value in it immensely. I know that it would probably help our driving and help us get more competitive and more aggressive, but it's just balancing that time and time with family, work, drifting. It's a song and dance to try to keep it together.
Absolutely. I want to touch on that music festival that you did. I learned about that just about after you did it, when I saw a little bit of media on it, what was
Mhm.
the reception of drifting in, is it Brainerd, Minnesota?
Yeah, it's so again, I mean, it's up here we have a pretty decent drifting community. I mean, there's quite a bit of driving. We have ND Drift, which is our local
Mhm.
track, which is 10 minutes from us. Great facility, great staff. Not a huge track, but a very, very fun, tight technical track that's purpose built. It's not a parking lot. It is a purpose built, laid out, really nice track. We also have Brainerd, which is a road course, but they also have a big skid pad there. So, and there's Elko and some other places around here. South Dakota Drifting has one. So we have a pretty good community. But you go to these events where it's like music fans and they're like, what's all that ruckus and smoke happening out there on the track? And they're more interested in the mud bogs happening or the snowmobiles racing around
Oh,
ponds. So I don't know. But there's definitely a lot of people that are interested in it. I mean, we have dozens of people that came by afterwards saying, I don't know what this is, but boy, this is cool. And man, you guys put on a show. So up here, we're kind of, I don't want to say a no man's land, but unless you're a part of the community, you have to kind of explain what it is. Like you're talking to talking to somebody that's never even heard of it, let alone has really much interest in it. But yeah, it's awesome to get to those events because even if you see 1 out of 50 people that think it's cool, it's just somebody you get to interact with, talk about the car, have a kid come sit in your car and take a picture, give out stickers and promo stuff, and I like that a lot. So I think for us, even if we only see 10 people there that know what we're doing, that's a win for us.
I'll take the small victories. I will take the small victories.
Can't be greedy.
Uh,
You got to take what we can get.
Exactly. Well, then let's flip to the other side of it. When you do go to an FD event and you are talking to young people or just people who are
Mhm.
maybe older, but they have a slight interest in drifting and they saw it and they're locals, they're trying to figure out what are your interactions like when they learn that like this is your rookie season, you skyrocketed into this position and they kind of see that. But sharing your experience, how is that received by other people?
Yeah, first and foremost, I love I mean, that's like my favorite part of the event is when guys come up and we have 20, 30-minute conversations about, our car, how we got here, what parts we've ran and didn't like. I love it when guys come up and say, hey, I have a 350Z, here's my problem that I'm having with it. What do you think might be, a solution? So first and foremost, we love when guys come up and talk to us about that. That's what we're doing on pro days. We have the car pulled up. You were there when you came through on pro day, I believe you did. We had the car pulled up, opened up, doors open, everyone take a look, check out what you want, ask any questions. So we love that. But yeah, when, guys coming up to the pits, and to be honest, we haven't had the best success. Atlanta, we debated on initiation, got knocked out in seating. New Jersey, we missed outer zone one, just a small miscalculation on run up and lost in seating, but then still got into 32 and had a really close battle with Dimitri, and which I was pumped about, even to be that close to a world champion. It's just awesome. But no, guys came over and they maybe didn't see us because we were doing super good and going all the way through the bracket, but they loved the car. And I think if you can't be great because you're winning, at least be noticed because you have a cool car, right? That's look pro, go slow. That was the motto back in motocross days. But that's what
Uh,
we're riding that coattail right now. We may look slow, but we're going, we're going slow. We look pro, right? So, no, people coming up love the car. They started asking us questions about how we got there, telling them about what we do. They're all, I shouldn't say they're all, a lot of them are early level. They're my first, second year, right? Trying to figure out what this sport is, what it means, where they want to go. And if we can all enlighten them, give them really unbiased, true information on what they're in for, whether they stay grassroots and local or try to make it big, and go pro spec. I'm really, like I said, I'm really honest with when people ask me questions. What's it cost? What does it take? What's the requirements? I'll tell them because I want them to know what they're getting into. Whether
right.
it's good or bad. And so I really enjoy the fan interaction. Other than competing, you know, once the competing's over, it's like, how many people can we talk to? How many people can we interact with? How many questions can we answer? How much advice can we give? Whether they take it or not, we really enjoy that part.
Do you have an event or a fan interaction that's like a core memory that sat in your head? I mean, I think we all have at least one or two instances in our career that just sticks with us and we like to look back on as just being that impactful.
Yeah, it was actually our first round of Atlanta, and I had
Okay.
this dad and son come up to me, and this son, I don't remember how old he was exactly. He was a young kid, and he was just sim driving, and they were building a 350Z, and they sat and talked to us about RZ, looked at our car, got kind of some pictures and some ideas on how they wanted to build their car. And the son was bringing up a point that he was having issues when he was driving on his sim, keeping the car at a consistent angle and not having to use the hydro so much, and laying down really consistent, clean runs. And I just really emphasized the use of left foot braking. And he was like, well, I haven't really done that much. And I just told him, I said, just start driving around and the entire lap, just ride your left foot brake and over rotate the car a couple times and really just focus on using that left foot braking as a tool to help control the car, especially when you're chasing, to have correct line run an inner clip or something like that. Really dive into that left foot braking. And what was really cool was within a week of us getting home, I'm getting videos of him driving with, left foot braking and just updates of how it's helped him drive on sim and how he's going to start applying that once he's able to build his car. And I think that was cool where you're able to give a guy advice and then they actually go back and use it. And not to mention it's a young kid, which I have kids, so I have a soft spot for kids. And I just think that was one of those moments where it was like, all right, we're doing something positive. It may not be, absolutely monumental, but we're doing something cool and helping people in their early journeys and getting going and drifting too.
Absolutely love it. Now, speaking of sim, do you use sim, and what's your opinions on the sim?
So, so I'm having to redact all my statements from prior years when people would ask me about sim. I thought it was just the dumbest thing. I'm like, you fools, it's not even close to the same. And I'd never done one before. I'd never driven on one. I'm like, it's not the same. It's not even close. Like playing a video game. It's not going to give you the real thing. But, of course, we want to be competitive. So we built a sim this winter and started driving it with really no idea if it was actually helping us or not. Of course, downloaded all the, tracks, Atlanta. And I remember driving the first layout of Atlanta. The initiation was tricky just because it's such a big send down that hill. But then immediately filled every zone, hit the inner clip, came out, ran a great line. And I just remember thinking, oh man, that sim really helped. And oh my goodness, the accuracy of it was just mind blowing. You don't get the fear and the G forces, but the timing and the relative motion and when to hydro and when to shift and when to do all these things was so accurate that it almost took me a while to process, like, wow, I'm actually blown away that was as close as it is. So I now have flipped my tune from being against, I shouldn't say against, but thinking what a waste of time and money, other than just to have fun. And now I'm like, man, every single person should have a sim and be practicing rounds, which we do practice before we go to New Jersey. We're practicing for St. Louis, and it may not get you 100% of the way there, but it makes it so that when you get there, you're not having to learn the layout. You're not having to think about zones. You're not having to think about, should I be deselling here? You're just driving half on muscle memory already that you've built in the sim. It's a really good tool, but yeah, I used to think it was just dumb. I mean, it was so much emphasis people put on it. I'm like, oh, you guys, it's not that realistic. It can't be that good. No, it's pretty dope.
I mean, it's free laps. You don't have to load the car up. You don't have to strap it down. Tires cost zero. Gas is zero. I mean, you're in there in your socks if you want to be.
Respawn. I totaled the car. Redo. That's the best part. It's cheap.
So you like me, you were driver first and then went into the sim. What do you think was one of the biggest learning curves that you had to adapt to?
So I would have to imagine that a lot of drivers, especially at FD level, drive by feel. Everyone makes fun of me because I don't even have a pad under my seat. I just sit right on the frame of the seat because I think it adds feel. And from my motocross days, I like feel. I like when you're sitting there, I like to understand grip and I just think it gives you a little bit of more feed from the car, I guess, if you will. But going to sim, you don't have that. You're 100% visual and audio, which is really, really tough to transition to, I think, because I was expecting, even just like over rotating the car. I'm used to, you can feel when you're, oh man, I'm my shoulder's going forward. We're going to spin. You don't have that. And so it was a huge learning curve, over rotating the car, figuring out, where I'm at. The biggest change that we made that really started to click for us was we went VR, which some dudes have single monitor. We had a 3 monitor setup. The 3 monitor setup was good. But it just didn't give me that realism that I was looking for to make it really accurate. Once we went to VR, that completely changed our progression, the usefulness of it, and actually really being able to dial in track layouts before we go to them. I mean, you can look out, you can turn over your shoulder and you can see out of the car. You can see the line on the track. It's really accurate to a scary point. Um, and that way you may not be able to still feel the G forces, but at least you can kind of look around and not just have where the computer is wanting you to look based off where you're going. And that was where we kind of realized, like, okay, this is a really good tool that we need to utilize more and really start implementing before rounds to get us, like I said, 50, 60, 70% of the way there before we even get there.
So you really think so for the VR aspect? A lot of you, if you guys don't understand, the 3 monitor, the single monitor is one thing. Using like I believe Oculus is one of the favorites right now. Being able to look over your shoulder and being able to go back in and just follow it, but then still have the monitors for reference if you're trying to record yourself or anything like that. Do you still do that, or do you just go 100% goggles and?
Once we bought those goggles, yeah, we never switched back. I mean, there's some motion sickness and some stuff you kind of got to get used to, and you can't play it for 5, 6 hours on end. I mean, you got to play it for an hour or two and take a break or walk around. But once you get adapted to it and used to it and you get it set up right, it's boy, it's pretty awesome. And even just going stepping away from the FD stuff, there's a group of guys that I drive with. Actually, one of them's the Brainerd International Raceway guy, family and their buddies who were driving with this last weekend at that Lakes Jam. It's a group of us that get on there and party drive, just some lower powered cars on, some just awesome, fun, flowy tracks. And we're just slamming into each other. So even just on that aspect, it's just a blast. I highly recommend it to anybody that is a fan of drifting, trying to elevate their drifting or going pro in driving. I think it's just a good time. It's pretty fun.
So again, grassroots drifting still isn't cheap. If you had to do this all over again and make a choice, would you have bought a sim rig first, or would you have bought a 240 first?
It depends. If it's not in your cards to get a car yet, I mean, get the sim. There's some pretty modest sim packages you can get for less than a few $1,000s. You can go on Facebook and buy somebody's setup that they already put together. Buy a computer. You can have I mean, maybe I'm getting a little low here, but I mean, for $3,000, you could probably get a sim setup that's pretty respectable. We kind of have a mid-level sim. We have a pretty good cockpit. We have pretty good pedal setups and everything. So we spent a little more than that to make it more realistic. But yeah, I think if you can only afford the sim and your budget and your time and where you're at in life only allows it, get it, great, get going, get that passion, have some fun. But nothing replaces the car. I mean,
Of course.
you can be the best sim driver in the world. And do I think you have an advantage when you finally get in a car? Absolutely. But it's getting in that car, and a guy that's been drifting for 10 years versus a guy that's been driving sim for 10 years and jumps in a car, it's not the same, right? But it's a huge tool. But then again, that kind of backs up where it's like, I think nowadays the culture is buy a gangster car, buy a Corvette, buy power, and go just, get your FD license or go win comps, right? And it's like you got to remember that you can go buy a drift ready Z for $4 or $5 on Facebook Marketplace. It may not be the cleanest thing in the world, but you can be drifting and having unlimited laps with the boys for maybe 1,000 or a couple $1,000s more than your sim setup, and go throw some
Right.
Ironmans on and have just endless laps all day for a couple $100, your entry fee and a couple sets of tires. It's
Yeah,
not that huge of a step.
I know firsthand. I have one. The Corvette is a cheat code. Starting out in the Corvette, I feel, is just not a great idea. I know a couple of friends that have, and they're phenomenal drivers, but I think it's like I'm mad they don't have the struggle that we went through and the low power and just the anger initiation is just to be able to get the car to do things.
Just the mean clutch kicks. Just
Yes.
just dumping it constantly, trying to keep it in drift. Yeah, again, I went straight to I shouldn't say straight, but pretty fast I went to a really set up car. So I can't be too critical of people doing it. But it's definitely one of those things where it's like if you're open to suggestion, take the simple route. Buy a stock Z, buy a BMW that's lower powered, stay under 300 horsepower, and spend a year or two understanding the the fine tuning and the elements of drifting first. Baby step into it versus what you said, straight to the cheat codes, locking on the vet, and just go start trashing the local boys in their stock Z's, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, peasants.
Yeah.
The wheels on the bus go round and round, and your drift car should do the same. Let's be honest, there are so many wheel companies out there. It is definitely hard to choose from. But if you want fair pricing, great customer service, and a super quality product, look no further than Stage Wheels. Out of Richmond, Virginia, Stage offers 4 different wheel styles in multiple offsets, bolt patterns, and sizes to fit your application. Even better, use promo code The Dirt Drop for 10% off at checkout at www.stagewheelsna.com to be able to save on your next order. Also, be sure to check them out on Facebook and Instagram, Stage Wheels.
I think that can go backwards though. I think you can almost create bad habits by going to that crazy Corvette right away, and you just rely on that power, and you rely on the angle, and you rely on the car versus being able to just really wheel a car around. So you can go both ways.
Yeah, skill and fundamentals have their place, but I mean, if you just want to be able to have a little bit of fun and have a lazy day, yeah, Corvette's the way to go.
Oh, for sure.
The biggest thing, I know you're not big on it, probably is social media pushing a lot of this stuff through Reels and TikTok, being like, oh yeah, just spun around. And I know you're not big on it, but what do you think, in your opinion, is one good thing that social media is doing for drifting, and what's one bad thing?
Yeah, and I'm just so bad at it just because I'm on my phone so much with work and everything already, where it's like the last thing I want to do is start editing reels at night after I get kids down for bed and whatever else. It's just so far from where I want to do. I want to sit on the couch and relax and or just do something outside and not be glued to my phone even more. But I think the best part about social media is also kind of what I think FD is doing, where FD releases all of their footage from your runs, from all the runs for all of the FD event, other than practice. And so the ability to get really good video of you running laps, being able to post that real time for fans, being able to edit together clips of yourself and promote yourself and the brands. I mean, that's how we're all getting to the track, is supporting our brands and all of that. That is something that I think FD does really well, is allowing you the tools to take the video footage from the drone pilots and from the different angles and create that. But then on the other hand, I really look at social media as not necessarily promoting myself, but really just getting in touch with fans, people building cars. I love when people ask me questions. I think after New Jersey, we probably had a dozen or more people sending us questions that we talked to there. Hey, so I went home and I'm looking at my alignment and it's this. What should I do? I look at
Nice.
social media as the ability to interact with people really, more one-on-one versus, hey, I'm going to go create a ton of cool reels that get 1 million views, but really no true interaction. It's just views and some likes and some clicks. I want people to message me, and at some point maybe that won't be possible because maybe there's too many or whatever. But I think for now, that's the part I'm really enjoying, is getting to talk to people. And I tell them, hey, if you have a question on your car, message us. I love that. I love when you can tell me that you have a problem or an issue with your car, something that you want to improve, and then I can help them do that. So that's how I'm using social media right now, is as a tool to just talk and interact with people more one-on-one.
Right.
But I know moving forward, especially as we start hopefully getting some more success in the rounds, we'll take the social media more seriously. But I'm probably gonna have to get somebody to do it for us because I don't know. I don't have that creative mind.
Yeah, having a media guy when you're running a team is a big chip off of your shoulder, just to be able to let them, hey, do what you do best. I do car, and life is good.
Yeah, that's probably the one element we're missing right now. I mean, if we looked at it seriously, that's probably the biggest thing we're missing. We have all the other tools. It was kind of an afterthought, and I know it's like, well, you can still do it, and we should. And there's some people we want to reach out to and see if we can still get something set up for St. Louis and Utah. But it's also one of those things that just wasn't first in my mind. It was get this motor built, get this car together, get our transportation figured out, get airfare and Airbnbs and hotels and all these other things. And I wanted to make sure that, we don't have an infinite budget. I wanted to make sure we had the most important parts covered before we went to the stuff like social media and, additional crew on top of it. We wanted to get the real nuts and bolts covered first. And now we have that. We've done a couple rounds and we know, hey, we can start throwing some dollars towards some media guys. So we're going to do that and figure out somebody that can make reels for us so we can just, copy, paste, click, post. But yeah, it's a huge aspect of guys being able to promote themselves. I mean, the amount of brand deals and followers that some of these drivers have from purely just having your partners and yourself.
You touched on something that's definitely relatable in the pro-am side of things as well as FD is sponsorship. I mean, I know a lot of guys that are running these 50K comps, these 100K comps. They're not pro spec drivers, but they got some big ticket stickers on the side of those cars and some really tricked out programs. What's one way that kind of helped you grow your program when it came to adding sponsors or partners, however you want to describe them, to your program? What's one thing that like kind of worked really well for you?
Well, to be honest, we don't have a lot of sponsors. So our main Steffes sponsor, I mean, that's our family's business. And, they were really good to want to work with us, not only because they want to support us, but, it's our family's business. And that's really who I wanted to be on the car. And I was probably going to put that on there, whether or not they helped us or not. And so that was a no-brainer for us being our title sponsor. And that'll continue for, as long as we are running FD, we'll have them as our title sponsor. But then the rest of our sponsors are, some of them aren't even paid sponsors. They're just people that I really love or people that have supported us or helped us along the way. One of our sponsors, Odd Man Out, is actually my buddy Jesse from Canada. That's his, autosport or motorsports business up in Canada, Regina. And so kind of trade off for him coming down and supporting us was, hey, let me throw your sticker on the car and at least promote you a little bit, what we can. We have ND Drift on there, which is our local home track. They're not only a great track, but they've been supportive of us, giving us laps when we need them to test and whatever else. And, forgetting what else is even on there, but no, we have some other sponsors on there as well that have done a really good job. Not necessarily giving us money, which is great, but I've really liked people giving us the tools and the resources other than money, because we kind of had that part. I don't want to say figured out, but we had that. We just wanted to work with people that wanted to work with us. And even if it wasn't on a monetary basis, just on a support, information, access, Media Shack is our clothing and our graphics that's on our hood and our roof and our t-shirts. They helped us out quite a bit, and they're a local company, which is who I want to work with, as a local brand that we know. I know them guys over there already. So it was just a really natural fit. One thing we set out, which, talking to people, was the importance of sponsors. But the one thing we were really cautious about was we didn't want expectations on our shoulders at every round, which is heavy. You start talking about random businesses, pick one, giving you $10,000 or $5,000. It's like, that's, especially to a small business, that's a lot of money. And that's how much of their advertising budget for the year. And then I go to beat on initiation and blow it. I don't want that weighing on me while I'm just trying to figure out this first year of FD. So that was another one of our stances where, hey, let's go after some people that really want to work with us, that we already know, that are already part of our program, and not go outside of our current setup too far. Just so that we stay away from that, like sitting on the starting line, having a panic attack because, man, what if, McDonald's fires us because we beat on initiation and blow it, So I don't know. I think for this year, we're a lot of volunteers, a lot of self-funding, and I like it because we don't have a lot of stress right now. I think as we move forward, though, to continue, we'll have to start stepping that up a little bit more and getting more brands involved. So,
And I mean, that the biggest thing too, I think you touched on it a little bit early on, is not having the ability of like just, hey, asking for money. It's like, I'd rather take some sort of a support to be able to help my program grow, because you may not need like the 10 grand for flights or whatever, but like if this person can help book the Airbnbs, then we're good, or something similar like that.
Yeah, even fab work, for us,
Yeah.
That's one thing for us that we want to get down the road is, reaching out to specific needs. and not saying, give me money, but how can we work together to get a discount on fab work, or not even a discount of, hey, I just smashed my car in the wall and I needed a whole new rear end, tube rear end structure built. I'll pay, but I need it in tomorrow. That sometimes is more valuable than money, or any sort of sponsorship is access and a quick turnaround, a quick time frame. So
Absolutely.
that's almost what I look for as a bigger advantage than cash is access. And hey, we need this part tomorrow. Can you get it for us? Yes, we can. I'll still pay for it. Can you put us at the front of the line, right? And get it to us
Please,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah. So I think that to me, that's always been more of a strategic partner, because at the end of the day, free parts are great, but if they don't get delivered in time, what do you do? So I
Right.
think, yeah, I think that's a big one for us is finding specific needs of what the car needs, and then go out to those partners and try to make something happen with those people.
So, I mean, was this something that you thought about going into like round one FD, or is this something that you've kind of learned along the way? This the way you operate with your sponsors.
Um, you know, we originally said we are going to have like no sponsors. We were going to have our Steffes sponsor and that was it. And then, you know, one person reached out to us, or we reached out to them, and it was like, hey, you know what? Let's throw your car let's throw your logo on the car because you helped us, or you're stepping up in a way that I think we should pay you back a little bit by putting the logos in the car. So we kind of started off by saying we're going to have no sponsors. And then it's slowly, we added a few here and there. I think we're up to like 5 maybe only, which isn't a crazy amount. And I think other than sponsorship, I think where I've grown this year and really seen like, wow, I'm doing this wrong is really around the social media and having that. That's where I've really noticed that I'm falling really short. And so the sponsor thing, I don't know if we're going to change a lot moving forward. I think we're going to try to keep our sponsor deck relatively slim, but really focused on those partners. But I need to do a much better job getting exposure to our partners and our sponsors and ourselves as well. I mean, I think after Atlanta, I don't think I posted a single video.
Wow.
And it's not that I didn't want to or I was embarrassed or whatever else. I just didn't put the time there because I was trying to get the car, back ready for the next round. I was working on business stuff, non-drift related, and I just haven't had the time to put there. So I think that's the number one area of growth that we know we have to attack is getting that social media guy, getting reels made, getting that presence out there and doing a much, much better job, not just promoting our sponsors, but engaging fans and bringing more people towards our pits to talk.
Well, watching those videos too, the biggest thing, I mean, when I watch someone's reels, a guy I like to watch is Rudy and Shelly, just because he'll talk, hey, we did this on the car today. And it was just like a genuine, like, these are the actual things that take us to be able to go from broken car to round one, or how we did our off season to be able to make this work. And it's a little bit more genuine than some of these commercials that some people
Yes.
put out. And I think there's still a fair balance and requirements that you have, but I mean, are you comfortable in front of the camera? Do you like talking? I mean, what's your personality like if you were to do videos?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an auctioneer by trade, so I get up in front of crowds of 500-600 people all the time. So it's not a stage fright thing. It's not a camera shy thing. We do interviews and promotional videos for our business. So no, it's not that at all. I have this curse of always being very focused on what's in the moment and not thinking. Like I bought a GoPro for FD and I unboxed it and got it ready. I still haven't mounted it once in the car because I just keep forgetting because I'm having fun. I'm just in the pits. We're talking to people. We're setting the car up. I'm getting ready for practice. And then afterwards I'm like, oh, I didn't even set the GoPro up or turn it on once. One time, I mean, those, I think, they have those cameras that have like those little fins on them that swivel with you and they mount on
Yeah,
top of the car.
the mount. Yeah.
I had one of those on for almost the whole event back when I was driving grassroots. Never turned it on. I'm just horrible. It's already on the roof. All I gotta do is push a button. And I don't know. I get caught up being very present and just trying to have fun. And that I forget that I got to take that extra step to capture the moment so then I can repost it later. And I don't know.
If it makes you feel better, I bought some Meta glasses 2 events ago. Brought them to both events, fully charged. Never left the case.
Yeah. No,
And
hey,
it
we're right
just
there together.
and you're like, you're driving halfway home. You're like, crap.
I took no video footage this weekend. Yeah. No,
I could
that's
definitely
the
relate to
biggest area
that.
that we got to fix. Yeah, we know it though. So
But I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's something that you could obviously grow into. You find your niche, and then, like you said, with the media guy working into it.
mhm.
I want to go back to, there was one thing about the grassroots stuff that piqued my interest about talking to people and moving their setups based on your interpretation and like your style and how people set up their cars. Everyone sets their cars up different. You are
Yeah.
full wise fab front and rear.
Mhm.
In the pro-am life, it's kind of hard to afford a lot of spares.
Sure.
So when you're thinking about budgeting to be able to have spares in the trailer for your setup, what are some of the like three go-to things that you make sure are in your trailer every event, no matter what?
Yeah. Um, obviously suspension components, you have to have we have a complete front wise fab set. We have a complete rear wise fab set. We have complete coilovers to swap out, steering rack. But I mean, if you're going to talk about the three most important, it's going to be the rear. I think the rear wise fab or your rear arms, because you're always going to tap that back end into a wall and break a tie rod or a tow arm or something like that. So having rear spares is probably the most crucial, I think, if we're talking about arms. And then when you go up to the front, it's obviously tie rods, right? Having spare tie rods and having them somewhat preset with, the inner and outer tie rods already on. So you're not sitting there having to thread a million
Right.
times, have it ready to pull that one off the rack and throw a new one right in, drop the bolt and just adjust a little bit of toe. Um, Gosh, what's another one that we've had to really replace? Belts, supercharger belt, and the accessory
Mm.
belts. Um, our setup is weird. We don't have a tensioner for our accessories. So we had to do 200 trips to the auto parts store to figure out the belt that would fit perfectly by just letting the alternator kind of slip out of its housing and then using a pry bar to just pop it back down and slap a bolt in there. And we have a perfectly tensioned belt. So just certain things like that. I think the belts, if you have a supercharger, stuff that's easy to swap quick. You can have all the spares in the world, but can you really swap out a throw up bearing in a 5 minute? No. Can you swap out, a whole transmission? I guess maybe some of the better teams can. There's certain things you just can't fix in a 5 minute timeout, but maybe you could fix overnight. So we have quite a few spares, but the realistic ones that you could actually swap out in a 5 are going to be your arms, knuckles, maybe knuckles, but that's even a quite a send in a 5. Um, but the thing that's nice, and that kind of goes back to the argument of why we went to a 350Z chassis, was the argument of needing less spares. Because if we're at a track that has 20 other Zs, chances are somebody's going to have an arm that we can make work, even if it's not necessarily a wise fab arm. Somebody's got an arm, somebody's got a hub, somebody or a wheel bearing. Somebody has something there that we could probably make work. And so that kind of goes back to where if you're on a budget and you don't have the ability to have tons of spares, go to a chassis that's super common. Because like that grassroots community, if somebody came up to us and needs parts, we'll give them parts. As long as we're
Right.
not in the heat of battle, we'll give somebody a spare part. We'll give them spare bolts. We'll give them spark plugs. We're more than happy to do that. So find your way into a chassis that's really common. And that way you maybe don't have to have this crazy bank of spare parts. You can get the bare essentials and then hopefully rely on somebody else at the track that maybe has one that you need in a pinch.
Look, it doesn't matter if it's your first drift day ever or you've been drifting for almost 2 decades like me. Safety better be one of your top priorities when you're hitting the track, and Velocity USA has you covered. Based out of North Carolina, they literally have you taken care of from head to toe with regards to safety equipment, whether it be helmets, Hans device, custom made race suits, gloves, shoes, undergarments, everything to be able to make you FIA and SFI certified, as well as also having teen and children's safety equipment. You need crew apparel? They can take care of you too with their custom made crew logo shirts for both adults and children. Check them out at velocita-usa.com or on social media, Velocity USA on Facebook and Instagram. And make sure to use promo code TDD10 at checkout on their website to save 10% off on all Velocita branded products. Oh, that's a good point. I mean, again, there's a reason that half of North Dakota drifts 350Zs. You
Dude, they're the best.
know?
They're the best chassis.
So one of the things too that I think people don't take for granted, I will say, in the grassroots is maintenance.
Mm.
Just because you're not putting 5,000 miles on an oil change, stuff like that. What are a couple of things that people maybe overlook in between
Yeah.
drift events when they're first starting out that they don't think needs to be a priority?
I mean, maintenance up here. There's a lot of guys. I won't call them out, but there's a lot of guys that drift all year on the same oil. Um,
We got them here too. It's okay. They're everywhere.
I'm calling my main guy Breck out. He takes used oil from other people and puts it in his 240. Oh, I
Breck,
die. You know, like
Breck.
we have new oil in the shop. He just takes. It's just. But when it comes to my car, which he manages, I mean, him and I both believe in unbelievably good maintenance, prevent the problem from ever occurring. Every single time we drive that car, we put brand new oil in it, which is like 8 or 9 quarts. We put brand new transmission fluid in, which is about a quart only, so that's pretty easy to do. We do the diff oil every other round, but then you got to think when you're popping that cap off to swap your gear sets out, you're losing maybe a quart or so, maybe half a quart. So you're putting a new quart in each time. So you're getting some new oil in there. But then we're also doing a brand new filter, and we're not buying the cheapest filter. We're buying a good filter. So, you think about the cost to operate these cars, and people talk about tires and fuel. Well, it's $150 just in oil and filters and everything like that per round. But the maintenance is is in our opinion the most important part. You only have 4 rounds. If you pop a motor because of poor oil and poor maintenance, because you try to save yourself $150, you just cost yourself
Right.
the whole season plus the 10 grand you spent to do that round. I mean, it's just crazy. So it's one of those things that I shake my head at when I see people just not doing it correctly or putting used oil in their car, to make it work.
Breck.
Uh, so I think it's one of those things that you can prevent a lot of problems by changing your oil, but then also too going even further in depth. I'm absolutely anal about my water temp or just the engine temps in general.
Absolutely.
I never want to see my car over 220. I have a heart attack if it goes over 220. We like it to operate in that 175 to 210 range.
Okay.
After a battle, we want it rated about 210, 215. If it's getting 220, like, oh boy, we gotta spray out the radiator and get this debris out of there and make sure we have really good airflow. Cause, you the hotter your engine gets, the more the oil wears down, the more the engine wears down. Heat just compounds all those problems. So whenever people talk about maintenance, it's having good oils, but then having good engine temps and having a really good car that's running properly, with a good tune and all these things to keep that engine healthy. I would imagine, also to AccuSumps. We're a
Mm-hmm.
big believer in running an AccuSump where before the round we dump, we keep 50 psi in there before we shut the car off and close the valve. Before we start it, on a cold start, we dump that valve. We have 40 psi immediately in there, getting everything nice and pre-lubed. And I don't know, I could go on and on about all the simple things we do, but it's definitely our fundamental when it comes to managing our car is keeping it as healthy as we possibly can, no matter the cost or the extra steps to do so.
That's something there was a part I want you to back up a little bit that we've talked about, but didn't really go in depth on it. I think I run an AccuSump as well on my G just because it's the cheapest insurance policy you can have for your motor.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mind going in depth on what the AccuSump is and why it's so important to be able to have one on your setup?
So, a lot of FD drivers are running a dry sump, which is an external pump and an external oil tank that scavenges oil from the bottom of the engine and pumps it into this, pumps it to a big 10, 15 quart tank. And in theory, you're never supposed to starve your engine of oil from G-force because you're serving you have this massive tank servicing your engine. We weren't able to run that setup because of our supercharger drive system. We weren't able to run a dry sump. So when, we're running a wet sump, now we're running a really nice pan by Moroso. That's a road course pan. So it has the baffling. It's very skinny. It's deep but skinny. So you don't have too much slosh side to side. But then we plumb in an AccuSump. So your AccuSump it is um, teed into your oil line on the pressure side, and it's taking oil from that high pressure side that's going to your motor, and it stores it. So whenever that oil pressure drops below the pressure that's in that tank, it releases oil into the system to always make sure you're being fed oil to your engine. Um, and it's almost, if you're not going to have dry sump, you almost have to have it. Not even for the pre-oiling aspect, but sometimes that oil pressure at 60, 70 psi, if you lose oil pressure, that could feed your motor for 20 seconds, 15, 20, 30 seconds. Opinions vary on that, but it can feed your motor for a pretty substantial amount of time, to where, yeah, you still have a problem and your data logs are going to show that, but um, you're not going to lose bearings because of it as quickly. It's just that extra safety net of saying, okay, if we have a problem, the AccuSump, or a temporary problem, I mean, you're never going to fix a permanent problem with the AccuSump, but if you have a 5-second, 10-second starvation, that AccuSump's going to feed that engine and keep it correct and keep it from throwing a bearing, and you're spinning a bearing or whatever else. And for us, we've had really good luck with it. This is our first year running it. But so far, our data logs are very solid. Atlanta, New Jersey, we're always holding 50, 60, 70 PSI. We're never dropping. Whether or not that's the AccuSump or just the oil pan being a really good oil pan, up for discussion, who knows? But it's a huge safety net. And then again, what I talked about before, you can pre-oil your system, and you can keep that 3 quarts of oil stored in there, so that when you go to cold start your car after a week or 2 or 3 weeks of sitting idle, when all that oil's seeped down, you have not as much oil as you should in there, just pre-lubes everything and gets it ready to go before you dry fire and maybe take 10 seconds to build oil pressure naturally. So I think that's a big one that people overlook. But it doesn't mean you can have poor maintenance, poor cooling, poor everything else. You have to have it all working in conjunction for it to be a really good, reliable setup. There's no one fixed solution for the whole system.
Well, and the activation, I know there's two ways. You can either have a manual ball valve, or there's a check valve that once it senses a certain pressure drop, it automatically feeds the engine. Is that correct?
Yeah, and we looked at both options. So we looked at the option of where you can. There's 3 options. There can just be an on-off button where you just,
Yeah.
basically, instead of turning the lever, you could be sitting in your car and push on, and it opens the valve. Or you can have a certain pressure release where, mess this up, but like over 40 psi, it's filling, and then if it drops below 20 psi, it pushes out.
Right. It evacuates. Yeah.
Exactly. But the thing that we read about that was that and maybe this is wrong, I don't know, but this is what we were led to believe, is that it doesn't have the same flow when you have the electric valve in there, because it's not as big of an opening versus your straight ball valve with the handle on it, which makes sense. I don't know. Maybe that's a rumor, but and then also too, the thing for us is just dummy proof it, make it so that no electrical system can fail, no fuse can pop. We open it when we start the day, and we close it at the end of the day when we put the car away. We never close it otherwise. So the very first thing we do before we start the car for the very first time of the day is we have our checklist, and one of those checklists is opening up the AccuSump. Once we see good pressure, we fire the engine. Before we put the car away at the end of the day, build oil pressure, make sure everything's kosher, close that valve, put it away for storage. So to us, it was just like create that extra layer of, we can't F this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And vice versa, technology won't fail on us and not open this AccuSump up and cost us a really expensive engine.
And the dry sump stuff, it really is impractical outside of that pro spec level to be able to have it on your car. I mean, I've seen maybe one pro-am car with a dry sump, but cost effectiveness, I mean, you can, again, like about like $500 maybe in an AccuSump setup, if you get like a used tank maybe, but like the lines, I know, are probably the most expensive depending on where you mount it.
Yeah, I think the hardest part about an AccuSump is just where the heck you mount that big reservoir. I mean, it's a unit. It's not small. It's a big thing, and we put it right up front. But there's a lot of guys that have to shove it out back. Then you have another big oil line running up front. So there's pros and cons both ways. I get it. For us, We haven't had any oil pressure issues at all. We don't see a big need to go dry sump anytime soon. As long as we see good results with what we're running, why would we change it? We have a good recipe. Car's reliable. It's running good. Let's just leave it be.
Well, you're not running used oil too, so at least your pressure
We
and
got
your
that going
volume.
for us. Oh, I gotta tell him to watch this just so I can wait for him to text me, be like, "F you, man."
Be
No,
like, come on, man, how you gonna put me on blast?
in his defense, it is a stock KA making 110 horsepower, so it's just like his stock thrash car. But nonetheless, it was one of those moments where I'm like, "You did what? Oh my gosh!"
It's like that meme of that really, really old, dirty guy. It's like, you putting a new air filter on your car while your oil is getting reused.
It's a rough one to watch. But
God.
no, and I mean, he has been responsible for probably 60 to 70% of the build on our car. So I'm not going to dog him. He's a fantastic, car manager, builder,
Yeah.
fabricator. I mean, the whole 9 yards. I mean, he's been really good. Wiring genius. I mean, our car is so clean with wiring, all because of him. He did all of it on it. So I can't dog him too much because without him, my car would look rough. But no, he's an interesting cat for sure.
That's what matters. I want to take a little bit of time to talk about the future of drifting in your opinion on a couple of certain things.
Yeah.
So we see that we went from S13, S14, E36, E46, the Z chassis, now the Corvettes, a couple of E90s are jumping in there, and like onesies and twosies of oddball chassis. What do you think, like let's say in the next 5 years, is going to be the go-to grassroots starting platform?
Oh boy.
I know, I know.
I think the Mustangs and the Corvettes are going to continue to get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think the biggest shift that I see is guys going away from overbuilding the Z's and the S chassis and just jumping straight to a chassis that already has an LS in it, already has the 5 oak, motor or whatever for Mustangs. I think guys are going to start going that direction as those get a little more affordable. And then also with RTR pumping out crazy good products for, expanding the product line, if you will, on the Mustang side of things, you're going to see, I think, a lot of guys where they maybe they used to drift Z's with full interiors with AC. Now they're drifting Mustangs with full interiors and AC, and doing, grid lifes with them and whatever else. So I think you're going to see more of the American muscle, Corvettes and, maybe even some of the Camaros. There's guys around here drifting the Camaros, which the newer style ones, which is odd.
The fifth gens?
What's that?
The fifth gens?
Yeah. Guys drifting those, which is interesting. It's cool. I mean, and they're performing pretty well. So I just think you're going to see a lot of guys trying to buy a competitive chassis right off the line without having to spend all this money and time and energy trying to swap an LS into a Z or an S chassis, or building a 2J, which to be honest takes a lot of knowledge and expertise. And depending on where you're located, money. Yeah, exactly. I don't even want to know how much. So, I mean, if you look at my Z, not even counting suspension, like let's just talk, the Z chassis I think it was like $4 or $5 that we paid for it. The LS that we had was, I think, like 9,000. The T56 Magnum was 3. The the adapter from Siki, like the engine mounts and the transmission mounts and the drive shaft was thousands. I mean, you do the math, we're at 20 some thousand pretty quick. You can go buy a Corvette for $14,000-$15,000 right now. You could go buy a C5 Corvette for like 10 to 14. And
Right.
you only have 300 some horsepower, but nonetheless, you're in an LS chassis. That's relatively competitive. So I just think the cost of going to these big swaps is getting pretty intense. And then also now you're messing with, things not lining up right and not mating well together, having to bang out the bell housing or the tunnel to clear the bell housing. And yeah, I think you're going to see a huge push towards stock cars out of the box, throw an angle kin on it, and you got 400 horsepower.
I know that's fair. I mean, I was just thinking about this the other day because 1990 240SX S13 is 35 years old today.
Yeah.
And when you think about how long 35 years is, a 1965 Mustang and a year 2000 Mustang is 35 years.
I know. No.
So, and I mean, I hate to say it, some of this Japanese sheet metal ain't exactly as thick as some of the American stuff. And I don't know how bad rust is up by you. When it comes to chassis and stuff like that, but I mean, not everyone takes good care of their cars, previous owners and stuff. So,
and I think also as the bigger thing, in my belief, that has kept guys from really diving into the Mustangs and some of those other LS, based chassis is just the parts. They're not as well drifted yet. So there isn't the angle kits and the over fenders and all these things that you kind of rely on to make your car really, driftable, reliable, fixable. I think as that ramps up, which it is, I think that's what's going to push this more than cost, because the reality of drifting is it's getting way more expensive. When I first started drifting, Kendas were like $80. That wasn't that long ago. That was like 5 years ago. Now they're $180, right? So it's like just the ramp up that we've seen in costs, where guys that are drifting tend to have a little more disposable income now, and they're wanting to build some pretty gangster cars. And so I think as those parts continue to be more accessible for these newer 2010 plus cars, you're going to see a ton of guys diving into those. Even the C7 Corvettes, are coming down in a price range where it's like you're seeing guys starting to drift those in a competitive, not even pro, just in a pro-am level. It's pretty alarming. I think you're going to see a lot more of that.
Well, even with now online auctions, being able to go to like do Mannheim stuff and IAA and Copart, being able to get salvage title stuff was something that we couldn't do when I started in 2007. That was not that was not an option. So accessibility now versus then is a big thing. Final thoughts on this. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a grassroots driver? First day out, first event, what is one thing that you would want to ingrain in their brain?
Oh, I mean, there's a couple things, but I would tell you the most important thing, if you're going to look at longevity in this sport, which we're not claiming that we already have longevity, but I think it's the one thing that's going to keep us going that direction, is having a short memory. I think you have to be able to go out, get destroyed, DB'd, lose, go off track, drive 14 hours to run one lap. You know what I mean? You have to be able to do that and then say, well, to the next event we go. Because if you can't have that mentality, if you collapse within your own thoughts of could have done this, should have did that, trust me, there's times I have that, but you got to snap out of it. You could be sad for an hour or two or three, but then you got to move on and say, okay, what's next? Where do we go next? Because if you dwell on your losses, you're going to have a really, really short, shitty career in drifting. You got to be willing to just let it roll off and say, hey, that one didn't go our way. The next one will. Because in drifting, unless you're an Osbo or one of these just guys that can just lay it down lap after lap perfectly.
Robots.
Yeah, unless you're a robot, you're going to have more disappointments than you are successes, especially as you grow and build. And hopefully someday you can be a pro driver that's having more successes than losses, and that'd be awesome. But yeah, have that short memory. Do not dwell on those losses, because there's going to be plenty of them while you build and figure yourself out, your car out, your program out. And then secondly, I would say the second most important thing, if I may, is surrounding yourself from the day one with the best people. Find those friends that, you help them, but they help you. Finding those people that give you really good advice that you don't want to hear, but you need to hear, and that's one thing that I've been super blessed with, is having really, really good people in my corner. Great team members that, we disagree, but they're always coming from a place of true belief and not their own personal agenda or their opinion. Because there are so many guys that'll jump on your coattails. They'll try to, get exposure through you. They'll, ask for the world. And then when it comes time for you to need them to go do pro or go to a round, they're nowhere to be found. And so find those good dudes that you've grown up driving with or started excelling with, and just latch onto them and create a really good team. That's just everybody building each other.
Absolutely beautiful. I mean, we started talking about community and camaraderie, Ending on that note, I think, is just as respectable. So now is the time where you get to talk about your social medias and how we can find you and any and all of your partners and sponsors that you haven't already mentioned that you'd like to shout out.
Yeah, first and foremost, Stepus Auctioneers, that's our family's business. We've been in business for over 60 years. We sell farm equipment, construction equipment, trucks, trailers, transportation, farmland across the United States and now Canada, which is pretty cool. So we've expanded into Canada now. But as far as my social medias go, you're not going to find much out there. I don't post a lot, but Justin Ruth on Facebook, our Instagram's jruth199. We're going to get better about posting content. So go check it out. Anybody listening that's going to come to an FD round, we got stickers, we got Pokemon cards, we got shirts. We give out the stickers, we give out the Pokemon cards. Come to our pits, chat with us, talk to us. That's what we love. If we fail on the track this year, but succeed in the pits and interacting with fans, we'll at least leave with some good memories and some happiness versus just pure sadness and despair. But no, we're looking forward to that. Come chat with us, come find us, ask us questions, find us in the pits, hang out. We're always super pumped to do that.
Absolutely. And I will say, guys, all I had to do was ask, and Justin hooked me up with exactly what he said. He signed all of it with a smile on his face. So I will be the testament that this man has no problem interacting with the people. Justin, again, thank you so much for your time. For those of you watching, I am at Diva the Comic on Instagram, Chris DeBoard on Facebook, and you have been watching another episode of The Dirt Drop. We will see you on the next one. And that's it. We're done.
Awesome.
Oh my God.